Hi everyone, my name is Katerina Stoykova and I'm the owner and senior editor of Accents Publishing, the press that published Yvonne Johnson's very first chapbook, I Am Woman. And with us is Yvonne herself. And I want to welcome her to this conversation and also to the United States. Hi, Yvonne.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, first of all, congratulations. Can we see the book?
Yes, it is here.
Yeah, congratulations. And first, our listeners may not know, I just mentioned, but they may not know the details well, actually, you live in Germany. Can you tell us what took you there and how come you stayed?
Yeah, so I actually went to England for my master's in cybersecurity. And as I was in there, I decided that I wasn't ready to leave Europe just yet, but then Brexit was happening in England. So I was like, I probably don't want to stay in England with Brexit. And so I looked upon Germany because in high school, I actually took German classes. So I already knew how to speak pretty well in German. So I just gave it a shot. I applied for jobs in cybersecurity, and I was lucky enough to get one. And I've been in Germany for about 3 years now. I'm currently on vacation at home in Kentucky. But yeah, I'm enjoying my time there so far. And I love all the vacation we get. That's why I can stay home for an entire month in Kentucky, because we get ample vacation, which is keeping me there so far. So yeah.
So how does it feel to be home and also having lived so long abroad? Has the idea of home shifted a little bit in your mind? I mean, I have my own opinions about this and my own view about that, but I really want to hear yours.
Yeah, for me, home is where my family is, and pretty much all my family is still Kentucky. So Kentucky still has the home modifier, home moniker. Germany is also a form of home, but it's not, if I would say what's my home, I would still say Kentucky, still say where my family is.
Do you miss anything about Europe, or is it too soon?
Yeah, I guess it's too soon. I don't miss anything right now, because right now I'm still getting all the things that I miss from the US. Like I got corn dogs a couple of times already because there's no corn dogs in Germany. Yeah, things like that. Fast food that I can't get in Germany, like Arby's, one of my favorite fast food restaurants. I can't get that in Germany. So yeah, that's what I'm doing right now, getting all the stuff that I miss from the US.
Well, that's what I do whenever I'm in Europe. I'm listing the restaurants I want to visit once I come to the United States, and vice versa. Yeah. So cybersecurity, you write software. So there's a question that I'm being asked a lot, because I'm a poet, and I also, I guess I worked as a software engineer, and I wrote code. And people will say, "Oh, how come you do one and you do the other?" Basically, as if it's impossible to merge both of them. I also have an opinion about that, but I want to hear yours. How does it work?
Well, sometimes it feels separate, but sometimes it feels together. I mean, if you think about programming languages, it's language, it's still words, it's putting them together to solve a problem. And you could say the poems are the same way. You're putting words together in a certain way, in a certain format to solve a problem, to speak your message out. It's for a certain purpose.
That's exactly what I would explain to people. And I would add the captive audience of the computer, the instant gratification that somebody understands what I've written.
Yeah.
And I think that writing code helped me get the responsibility to really understand the responsibility that, the computer does whatever I tell it. It understands no more, no less than what I tell it. So it's my responsibility to speak clearly. And that applies, across all sorts of situations in life. So I'm sorry, I'm going to ask you a few more questions about
No
music
problem. Yeah.
in two countries and in two
Yeah.
languages. So which language do you think in?
I still think the majority of the time I think in English, and like even when I'm in Germany, I watch all my TV shows in English because I prefer the English voices to the German synchronization to things. But when I'm speaking in German, then I'm also thinking in German because I don't do any translations as I'm speaking in German. So yeah, the majority of the time I'm just by myself or something, I'm thinking in English usually.
What about your to-do list? Which language do you use?
Yeah, that's different. Sometimes I do it in English, sometimes I do it in German. Depends on like if it's for work, then I'll put it in German. If it's just like for me, then it's usually in English.
Do you do mixture of languages?
Yeah, sometimes. Well, also when I'm just speaking to people, like if for example, I'm speaking with my boyfriend, we speak like a German English mixed together a lot of times. Yeah, so I'm probably making his German worse. He's used to speaking like the English with me.
The context of your daily life.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I want to hear about the book, and I'm interested in the process of how it came about. How did you write it, and about the topic the book is dedicated to.
Well, this book's actually been pretty long in the making over several years. I guess I technically started it when I went to the Governor School for the Arts in 2012, I believe, when I wrote like the first iteration of a poem that went into this book. And then I didn't really start further working on it until I was in university, and I had a few classes with Frank Walker, and with him I was able to explore the topic further and write much more of the poems. I think the majority of the poems in here came from that time in university, but then I also wrote a couple of poems during my time in Germany, for like the last year or two. So yeah, just it wasn't anything that was rushed. It took several years of work and iterating and rewriting the poems until I felt they were ready.
I think it's a brave book. I think that you really speak to very serious topic. Could you tell us more about it?
Yeah, so in general, the book is about gender and sexuality, the complexities of gender, and how women interact and define their sexuality in a patriarchal society, and explore many topics in that realm, some personal, some not so personal, some from other points of view that aren't from my personal point of view. And yeah, I'm just in general, when I'm writing poetry, that is my goal, is to write things that are important to me, that are trying to fix a problem in society, or trying to address a problem in society. It's not for me personally to just write poems about flowers or nature. If I'm doing that, I want it to do something else. I want it to do extra work. So that's always my aim with my poetry, is to attack difficult topics and to not shy away from them. And yeah, and hope I present it in a way that is understandable and clear to a wide audience. So it's not like a bunch of flowery writing that's really difficult to understand. I try to keep it clear for people. So yeah.
A student of mine last week asked me, well, my book is on a very kind of difficult topic. It explored suicidal ideation. And she's like, do I need to put like a trigger warning on it? And what my answer to her was, any good poetry book is a trigger warning. So I think that poets are the people who, as you said, don't shy away from the difficult topics. And in fact, if the work has done its job well, would drag the reader into that space. And I would love to hear you read as many poems as you would like.
Should I start now then?
Yes, please.
Okay. So I've selected 3 poems to read today. The first poem I'm going to read, I wrote after learning that my uncle has 2 spines. Unfortunately, they lost his twin in the womb, so I wrote this poem exploring that event. The vanishing. The doctor told my Nana her boy would absorb his sister into his body like sunlight. I like to think he reminded her of Una Lanuhi's daughter, who escaped the ghost world as a red bird. Let her imagine her girl as a great hawk or gentle finch just waiting to unshackle herself. Doctors cannot say whether neurons firing in dying fetal brains comprehend vanishing. Instead, it is left to the poet to dissect magic tricks, to explain how the girl disappeared, but left her long, beautiful spine on her brother's back because he needed hers too, to stand strong. So the second poem I've selected is about intersex people. And in case you don't know what intersex people are, they are people who are born with both male and female genitalia. And as you can imagine, this challenges our traditional strict binary views on what a man and woman is. You know, a man has a penis, a woman has a vagina, and there's no in between. Because of this, it is a common practice that when an intersex baby is born, the doctor will go to the parents and advise them to basically pick which gender they want to raise the baby as. The idea being the gender that you raise the baby as is the gender that they will accept. So if you raise them as a girl, they will accept that they are a woman and be happy with it. They will then undergo a surgery to follow the gender that the parents have chosen and the doctor has chosen with them. So example, they'll cut off the penis or they'll sew the vagina shut. And, case closed, everything is happy story. However, time has shown that that is not actually accurate. A lot of intersex people, they have opposite genitalia to what they personally identify as. So, for example, a man will have a vagina, and a woman will have a penis because someone decided that when they were a baby, that was right for them instead of just waiting to see how they view their body and what they want to do with their own body. So as you can also imagine that this really affects and complicates how that person views their body and how they interact with it and how they view gender. So the poem I'm going to read about intersex people is a contrapuntal. That means it's 3 poems in one. And so I will read this poem 3 times. First, I'll read the left column, I'll read the right column, and then I'll read both of them together. And you'll know which section I'm reading because I'll say the number before I start the next section. Intersexuality. 1. There is space the length of phantom limbs against waists hard and sturdy. A quiet word in a deep voice vibrates chests for decades, buries itself with the lump beneath. A fear of scalpels or ripping organs reminds the brain how the surgical knife cut off their penis. 2. Below covers naked bodies set together after pouring like concrete. A fake orgasm hides raw flesh, delays periods, beckons doctors' hands to fill the stomach's pit. Separating skin from person like sandpaper, the curious finger, cold, quick, and sure, widen their vagina. 3. There is space below covers the length of naked bodies, phantom limbs set together against waist after pouring hard and sturdy like concrete. A quiet word, a fake orgasm in a deep voice hides raw flesh, vibrates chests, delays periods for decades, beckons doctors, buries itself with hands to fill the lump beneath the stomach's pit. A fear of scalpels separating skin or ripping organs from person reminds the brain, like sandpaper, how the curious finger, the surgical knife, cold, quick, and sure, cut off their penis, widened their vagina. So the last poem I'm going to read is called Thanatosis, and that is a phenomenon or the behavior of playing dead. And in this case, it is the act of playing dead to avoid unwanted sexual attention. And this is seen in insects, most commonly dragonflies. So for example, and a female dragonfly is flying somewhere, sees a male, doesn't want to be mated, it will actually play dead, it will fall out midair and just crash to the ground. And this works. The male dragonfly will ignore the female dragonflies that are falling to the ground so they're dead. And so I wrote a poem that was inspired by this behavior. Thanatosis. I dreamt of being an entomologist as a child, of studying beetles underneath my magnifying glass and raising massive ant colonies inside transparent boxes. Even now I dream of dragonflies, watch female moorland hawkers crashing to the earth, feigning death to escape horny pursuers. I want it to be that easy, to be left alone when I sleep, to be safe when I am unconscious. But men are not dragonflies, and I cannot hide inside tall grass.
Wow, thank you, Yvonne, for this beautiful reading. What does it feel like to read all the poems together, to see all the poems together on this difficult, for many people, topic?
Yeah.
You know, someone described these poems as unflinching, and I think that's true.
Yeah, it's definitely heavy. For me, I read these poems so many times, but it was actually a bit terrifying for me to see them all in a book together for everyone to read, because it felt so personal to me, and then I was giving it to the world finally to read. So yeah, but I'm happy that they're in the book.
Yeah,
but yeah, it's definitely heavy. For me, since I wrote the poems and I'm familiar with them, I could read them all in one sitting, but I don't know how many people like would read them all in one sitting or take breaks and pauses in between. Yeah.
I think different people will be different. Every time I've read that book, I've read it from beginning to end. And I think that the poems make each other stronger. And by the end, I feel really grateful and that I have been through this journey and that these poems exist. Tell us about the cover.
Yes, so I'll show it again for people home. So yeah, this cover was, I guess, sort of commissioned from a friend of mine, Cassie Payne. She is also an artist that I met at the Governor School for the Arts in 2012. She was also in the creative writing discipline, but she's also a wonderful artist, as you can see from the cover. And basically asked her if it'd be okay if I use that painting for the cover, and she was happy to let me use it. So very thankful that she let me use it.
Oh, that's great, Yvonne. And I happen to know a few curious, interesting facts about you, that you're a dog trainer, or at least you train your own dog. Tell us more.
Yeah. So I'm currently training my Labrador puppy to be a search and rescue dog. So when there's a missing person in our area in Germany, our organization will be called, and we'll go and try to find them with our dogs. My dog, her name's Muffin, she's still in training, so she's not she's not allowed to actually search for people yet. But about a year or two, she has to pass a couple of tests, so I can pass it with her, and then she'll be able to actually look for missing people. It's really cool to see how good they are at it and how fast they get it. She started when she was 8 months, but dogs can start right when they're babies, basically, and they understand after like 2 times what they're supposed to be doing and how to follow the scent and get the food at the end, because at least the food motivated dogs, they're doing it for the food they get at the end. Yeah, it's pretty great to see. As an example, a dog was searching for me in one of our training sessions, and I just touched a flower for a couple of seconds, and all the dog had to do was smell the flower I touched, and it was able to find me.
Amazing. Yeah. That's amazing.
Yeah.
You know, from what I know about you, and every time that I talk to you, I mean, it seems like a lot of what you do has to do with service. You know, your hacking, your writing, and now your dog. You know, even your dog is of service.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh,
It's possible that's sort of like how I was raised. Because I just think about my mom when you said that, because my mom, her entire life has been dedicated to service, even with her job. She is an executive director of an organization that helps adults with disabilities, and she's been doing that a long time. Not her entire life, but a lot of her professional life is teaching adults with disabilities the skills they need in order to lead independent lives. So helping them to live independently from other people, and just seeing her, maybe that rubbed off on me, her giving her life to help others and
how wonderful to
translate.
have, yeah, how wonderful to have your mother as your guiding light and then following her footsteps. That makes sense and sounds very lucky for her and for us,
Yeah.
you know. And here's another curious thing. You play the bagpipes, but the thing is like you play the bagpipes in the United States and not in Europe.
Yeah.
It seems like it should be the other way around.
Yeah. So I went to Scotland on a Fulbright scholarship on a summer institute. So it's just for a summer. And there I heard the bagpipes, potentially for the first time, could be. But I heard them and I was like, they sound pretty cool. I want to learn how to play that. But I was only in Scotland for a summer. So I was like, what are the chances that there's a way for me to learn bagpipes in Kentucky? So I was still going to UK. So I returned to UK. I did a Google search and I found free bagpipe lessons in Lexington.
Wow, it was
Yeah. Yeah, basically it all worked out. So I started taking lessons with them, and yeah, the bagpipe isn't as okay. It probably doesn't look easy. So I was gonna say it doesn't look as easy as it looks, but I don't think the bagpipe looks that easy. But yeah, it's pretty difficult. I wasn't very good at it. I haven't picked it up since I've been in Germany, but I have thought about it a couple of times. The problem is that you need a good place to practice because they're super loud and I can't practice in my apartment.
Yeah. You cannot even practice in the woods too because you're gonna scare the wildlife.
Yeah, exactly. So maybe I'll find a place to practice in music school who doesn't mind if bagpipes blaring in their in their music rooms. Yeah, maybe I'll continue that one day.
About the bagpipes, I bought one. And I brought it from Bulgaria to the United States, and we all wanted to try it. And it made such loud noise, and it was difficult. It was difficult. It requires lots of air, lots of lungs.
Does. Yeah, a lot of breath control. Yeah.
Well, good for you. So another thing is, all right, we have mentioned that you're a hacker. So basically you legally hack in other people's systems.
Exactly.
How easy it is? How easy is it? Or how hard is it?
Well, you always find something, but you don't always find something critical. I have found like critical vulnerabilities that allow you to like take over the system completely, but that is few and far between. Usually companies have that under control enough that it's not something blaring and easy to find. But you always find stuff. You always find vulnerabilities. Yeah. But for the most part, I test web applications and then mobile applications, and then every now and then I also then do the infrastructure. I'll actually test the network and the services running on the network. That's where you usually find the more fun vulnerabilities. In web applications, standard things you find all the time. That user input wasn't correctly validated, things like that. Yeah, you always find something. There's always something to report, and so keeps it fresh, keeps it new.
And what is the end game basically, to make sure that they have foolproofed everything, or is that like
that's the thing with pen tests. You have a time limit, so you'll never be able to find all the security vulnerabilities. So you're just trying to find as much as you can in the time period that you have and the scope you have, so the customer can be better prepared to defend off from criminals. So we always tell the customers, just because we didn't find the vulnerability doesn't mean it doesn't exist. It just means we couldn't find it in this time, or that it requires more knowledge of the system and more effort in general. But here's what, for example, an attacker could find in this time period with this level of skill, things like that. And then that's also one of the the benefits of repeated testing so that we can retest systems and then try out new things during that retest. Yeah.
You know, I listen to NPR, and here and there I hear Russian cyber attacks are coming. Should we be afraid? How can we prevent anything, or can we prevent anything?
Yeah, well, there will always be cyber attacks. You can try your best. You can be your best prepared to prevent what you can prevent. However, if it's a nation state level actor, we tell people, at least in the private sector, if there's a nation state, if there's a country that's using all their resources to come after you, it's kind of impractical to prevent that 100% because they just have a lot more resources. But in general, a nation state isn't coming after your company specifically. So it's not usually in your threat. It's not one of the threats you're protecting against. You're protecting against other hackers. They're just on their computers trying to find companies to hack into. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. And I have a couple more questions. One is that you are learning to ride horses. Again, are you learning to ride horses in Germany rather than in the horse capital of the world here?
Yeah, I took like 2 lessons here when I was a student in Kentucky, but I was a poor student, so I didn't have the money to continue it. Yeah, I'm learning in Germany, so I'm also learning in German. It's not like I'm learning a lot of the things, like the German words for things, but I actually don't know the English words for them. But sometimes I do, but sometimes I don't. But yeah, it's a lot of fun, and it's actually different from the couple of lessons I took in Kentucky. Obviously, I can't say all horse riding schools in Kentucky are this way, but in Kentucky, to lead the horse, if you wanted to go right, you turned right on the reins, and if you wanted to go left, you turned left on the reins. So it was pretty easy and makes sense, like how you would steer a bike. And in Germany, it's quite different. You don't use the reins. You use like leg pressure and like and changing your weight to tell the horse where to go, so you're not like pulling on the mouth. And it's a lot more involved and complicated, but it's also fun, and you have like the added benefit that you're like it's more it's better for the horse's back and for the horse's mouth and things like that. So
and it also sounds like they're teaching you how to ride without a saddle, no?
Yeah, you could also translate it to riding without a saddle.
Yeah. So did you go to watch horse races here? Will you go?
I haven't yet, but yeah, it's on my to-do list probably at the end of April. Fortunately, I'm leaving before Derby time, so I wouldn't be able to go to Oak State, for example. But I'll probably still go to Churchill Downs before I leave.
And my last question, Yvonne, is what are you working on now?
Yeah, so during COVID, I've taken like a bit of a writing break, but I am actually slowly working on a fantasy book. I've been looking into African mythology in different countries in Africa, and because I find like the creatures in African mythology very interesting, and they're not pretty underrepresented in fantasy novels. So I'm exploring that currently. It's not anything very fleshed out yet, but that's what I'm looking into right now.
Good luck, Yvonne, with everything that you do, with your writing, with your riding, with your bagpipe playing, with speaking German and preventing companies to being hacked into. Thank you for what you do, and good luck with everything. Talk to you later.
Thank you. Yeah.